Hi, my name is Sean, and for those of you who aren't familiar, I have my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and so today I'm going to be diving into Black Velvetopia, the mental world of Edgar Teglee from Psychonauts, so that we can look at the psychology and how this psychology interacts with the level design. So, if you like this kind of content and you want to see more of it coming from this channel, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and why even ring that notification bell so you never miss another upload. But with all that out of the way, let's just jump into the video. So our first interaction with Edgar is seeing him angrily throw a painting out of the art therapy room in Thorny Towers, which we would soon find out is because whenever he tries to create any kind of art, his mind is filled with the thoughts of his hatred of the matador and the bull. But the question is, why does his mind become so profoundly filled with this hatred anytime he gets close to finishing his supposed treatment plan that Dr. Lobato had prescribed to him? Well, if we look into it, it makes a lot of sense. As with most mental worlds that we get to explore as Raz, we are able to find two mental vaults that contain the context that we need to be able to truly understand who Edgar is. In his first vault, we're given a slideshow that illustrates to us a fledgling high school love story. We see him begin forming a romance with a young Lana Pinzoni as he helped her to get into her locker by ripping it off its hinges. We see the two of them going on dates together, and we even get to see her give him a rose as a thank you for giving her his jacket. And it's little wonder that we find this vault hidden in a garden in the main level. This is a memory that he has likely hidden away and cherishes, and his feelings for Lana are even further indicated by his persistent desire to reach Lampita, his mental world substitution for Lana. And this is where things get interesting and complicated within Edgar's mental world, as he has started reconstructing his perception of reality to better fit his current circumstance. We learn from the collie in his mental world that he is a famous black velvet painter, just like his namesake Edgar Teglee, the real-world artist who's commonly considered the father of American velvet painting, and was commissioned by Dingo to create a black velvet portrait of him. However, since Lampita was seduced and ran off with Dingo, Edgar has been absolutely obsessed with the pair, and El Odio has rampaged the streets ever since. And while it may be easy to take this story at face value, in reality, Edgar has developed incredibly maladaptive coping mechanisms over the loss of his supposed wife to Dingo in Flagrante, and El Odio is just the mental manifestation of Edgar's rumination, which is defined by the American Psychological Association as being obsessional thinking involving excessive, repetitive thoughts or themes that interfere with other forms of mental activity. This makes sense, but it seems oddly straightforward when compared with the other mental worlds we've traveled to in Thorny Towers. And well, this is because it isn't that straightforward. These Pamplona, Spain-inspired streets that we see on the surface of the world were simply fabricated, just like Edgar's story of being a famous artist. And when we reach the sewers, we not only discover the second vault, but also what Edgar is trying desperately to repress, and that's his memories of high school. Repression is defined by the American Psychological Association as being the basic defense mechanism that excludes painful experiences and unacceptable impulses from consciousness. Repression operates on an unconscious level as a protection against anxiety produced by a variety of different stimuli. As we explore the sewers, we can see the locker room showers, figments representing his classmates, and behind a mental cobweb, we can see what represents the gymnasium with bleachers and fans, all of which Edgar shoved down and repressed within the depths of his mind so that he doesn't have to think about the truth of his situation, with this truth being revealed in his second vault. In Edgar's mind, the source of his greatest failures in life was that fated day at the state wrestling semifinals quarterfinals when he, the captain of the wrestling team, lost the love of his life to Dean LeGrand, the cheerleading captain, and in turn made his team lose the semifinals. It's this moment in time specifically that he attributes to everything that's gone wrong in his life. And so this frustration grew into rumination, and this rumination in turn was a piece of his obsession, which is defined by the DSM-5 as being repetitive and persistent thoughts, images, or urges. It's important to note that obsessions are not pleasurable or experienced as voluntary. They're intrusive and unwanted and cause marked distress or anxiety in most individuals. So it's little wonder that the bull named El Odio, which when translated into English means hatred, appeared after this moment. And then we're reassured by the Dalmatian that the collie story and the narrative that Edgar has talked himself into and fabricated is not based in reality whatsoever. And what we see in the vault is the truth. Just as his hatred of the bull and the matador would sabotage him in real life, El Odio would run rampant through Edgar's sanctuary anytime he would begin making progress on his tower of cards, and in turn, his goal of reaching Lampita, further illustrating just how intrusive and involuntary this obsession is for Edgar, as it enters the only place that should be a safe haven for him within his mind. And this safe haven in particular is probably a mental representation of the art room that he took refuge in within the school to hide from being harassed by his classmates, as we can see that while it is typically safe, sans the occasional outburst of El Odio, there are notable luchador masks on the outer walls, almost staring in at him. It's likely that within the confines of this art room that he used as a literal escape, he in turn began using art as a more metaphorical escape, with black velvet art being at the crux of this escapism. Black velvet painting is characterized by its stark black backgrounds that permit the colors to stand out, which this level heavily leans into. And the level designers further highlight these colors with a black light effect to make everything almost have this glowing look to it. This escape into the art world is also illustrated by the presence of dogs, which are heavily inspired by C.M. Coolidge's series of paintings of dogs doing everyday activities, and more specifically, dogs playing poker, which also provides us a reference to why playing cards are such a staple in this world. And more than anything, I think that this idea of art being an escape for Edgar is conveyed through the mechanics of the level itself. You will use paintings to enter new areas of the level that you couldn't reach before, whether this is by creating new passages or entering the paintings to challenge the luchadors and retrieve the queen cards. I mean, the Saint Bernard at the beginning of the level even goes so far as to say that El Odio imprisons us all. Art is the only escape, which, let's be honest, is as straightforward as it gets. All the while, Edgar remains trapped in this sanctuary, completely obsessed with reaching his beloved queen, Lampita, and resenting Dingo, the man who took her away from him, whom he characterizes very on the nose in his mind's eye as being incredibly self-centered, vain, and overall just the worst. And so if we take this obsession that Edgar has of the matador and the bull, both in his mental world and the real world, when paired with the compulsions that he has to paint the bull and the matador over whatever he is working on or trying to accomplish, with compulsions being defined as repetitive behaviors that the individual feels driven to perform in response to an obsession, or according to rules that must be rigidly applied. And these behaviors are aimed at preventing or reducing anxiety, distress, or preventing some dreaded event or situation. However, it should be noted that these behaviors or mental acts are not connected in a realistic way with what they are designed to neutralize or prevent, or they're clearly excessive. It's this that leads me to believe that Edgar could be living with something that closely mimics a real-world obsessive-compulsive disorder. Because in addition to the presence of Edgar's obsessions and compulsions, it's important to note, based on the DSM-5's criteria, that these symptoms are not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or another medical condition. It's clear that these obsessions that keep him trapped in this art therapy room are causing him clinically significant distress and impairment socially, occupationally, and in pretty much every aspect that we are able to see of his life. And so with these obsessive compulsive tendencies in mind, we need to address why his mental world appears so delusional, with him even creating a new narrative to better represent his current circumstance in his mind. And while we never see him talk about in the real world that he believes he's a famous artist, I think it's appropriate to use his mental representation of himself to say that this is likely indicative of his actual beliefs outside of his mental world as well. And so at first glance, this could appear as though Edgar could be coping with something more akin to a delusional disorder. However, according to the DSM-5's criteria, it's possible for individuals to have varying levels of insight into their OCD beliefs. There are a number of people who have tremendous insight, realizing that their beliefs or their belief system surrounding their obsessions or compulsions may not be true, while others may be on the other end of the spectrum and may have absent insight or delusional beliefs, which could appear similar to a psychosis from time to time. But if this is the case, then they should not be diagnosed with something like a delusional disorder in addition to their OCD, as long as they do not have any features indicative of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, like hallucinations or formal thought disorders, which Edgar does not. In essence, this just means that his obsessive compulsive behaviors would be diagnosed with a specifier stating that he has absent insight or delusional beliefs. Edgar has become obsessed with the belief that Dingo stole Lampita from him, and this delusion in his mind has become truth, with Edgar saying himself that he cannot let the matador and the bull go. And so once we're able to help Edgar finally build his card tower to reach Lampita, this is when Raz reaches, in essence, the core of Edgar's distortion. And it's here that Lampita reveals that El Odio, or Edgar's hatred, is the one who has been trapping her in Edgar's mind all this time. And it's this hatred that has consumed Edgar for so long, created these delusions, and caused him so much strife, was actually himself all along. And so as the fight progresses, Raz reveals to Edgar that Dingo, Lampita, and El Odio were all fake, and that Edgar can't let Dean and Lana control his mind any longer. Still consumed by his rage though, and unable to let go of them, he transforms back into El Odio, though his mind is much more clear now, angry that these two ruined his life for making him lose the state semifinals. Now the illusion of Dingo and Lampita has been broken, and Raz needs to help him defeat Dingo in order for him to no longer remain consumed by this obsession. And once Dingo is eventually overcome, Edgar is finally able to see the light and realize that he has been consumed far too long with these losers. And so when you meet with him in the real world, you can see that these obsessions and compulsions barring him in the story from being able to successfully move forward with his art and life have disappeared, and upon repeat visits to his mental world, we can see that the wrestlers who represented his former teammates who were inherently aggressive to Raz anytime he entered their rings have now pacified, now residing in the garden area where we found the first vault, illustrating that he has made peace with them. And now Edgar simply plays poker with the dogs that we had found previously throughout the level, hiding from El Odio, realizing that there's no need to escape anymore, there's no need to hide, and El Odio is no longer a threat to them. This is a level that conveys, in an admittedly heightened and over-the-top way, issues that a lot of people genuinely struggle with in their day-to-day lives. And while we can't have Psychonauts enter our heads and run amok until we're able to resolve our past and our struggles, I think that what Psychonauts does convey incredibly well is that it's okay to have help. I was watching the most recent trailer for Psychonauts 2, And I thought it was very telling that Hollis Forsyth, the second in command of the Psychonauts, states that it's not the Psychonauts' job to fix people, but to help them to face their own demons. This is in essence the same idea of what a mental health counselor should do for their clients. While Raz may not have done a great job of this with Boyd, the milkman, I think that he did do an amazing job when it comes to Edgar. And so with Edgar finally leaving Thorny Towers with the rest of the patients, and who knows, maybe someday he could actually become a famous artist. But that'll do it for this week's video, guys, and I want to pass the question off to you. Do you agree with my thoughts on Black Velvetopia, and are you excited for Psychonauts 2 coming out so soon? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, and while you're down there, why not liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and why not even ringing that notification bell so you never miss another upload. And why not even join the Thoughtbubble community Discord? There's a lot of really amazing, nice people that you can talk about Psychonauts with, or any video game or anime that you like. But as always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, a fantastic rest of your week, and why not even a fantastic rest of your month. And I will see you in the next video. Later.